Nathan, good to be here with you, man.
Joe, thanks for
First
coming.
podcast
First podcast of 2026 and ever.
ever.
So yeah, that's good.
I was very flattered by the invite from Ari to do this with you. I've known you for 15 years, I think, which is crazy to think, and to see the growth of the business has been awesome. Why don't you start by talking to us about what drew you to property management? How did you get into the business? Take us all the way back,
All the way back.
the origin story.
I'll go back to 2005. Was when the company was founded, and different world back then.
Yeah,
I was investing in real estate. I was working a full-time corporate job and investing in real estate on the side. And like kind of that is where I saw the ability to gain long-term wealth and the ability to kind of supplement like what I was doing, right?
yeah.
It's that dream we all have of passive income and just sitting back and collecting. How hard could it
I've
be?
read about that
Yeah,
before.
we're still there. I can see it. It's
Yeah.
there. And so I ended up buying a four flat, right? And this is in Lincoln Park, for a 20-something kid. Like this was a big
Yeah.
purchase, and I was
Did you
excited
live in
about
one
it.
and rent the others?
That was the plan.
Yeah,
I
okay.
was I was gonna house hack. I was gonna live in one. I was gonna do a bunch of construction. How hard could construction be? Like, yeah, I'll just duplex into the attic. This should be no
Turns
problem.
out really, really hard.
Turns out also expensive.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was the plan. Went out and acquired this property, plans to live there. I went through some architectural drawings, went into the city. So I got pretty far
Yeah.
and then learned the hard way that the city has rules. Some might call them
Yeah.
ordinances and zoning and things like that, and just building up into an attic. While I'd seen it done many times, turns out those aren't always legal. So I had to pivot, and I pivoted into this building just instead of becoming a potential home and a house hack for me, that this was going to be a strictly 4 unit rental property.
Okay.
And so then my mind shifted where I was like, okay, I'm just going to have, three neighbors and we'll hang out and they'll pay me rent. It's all going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Like, do picnics and have tea and
Yeah.
everything will be easy. And I went, okay, this is a rental property. I want nothing to do with this, right? Like this seems impossible.
You have another busy job.
I don't
Yeah.
want to, I'm
Yeah.
full-time job, like dealing with, vendors and tenants and everything like that. That wasn't really something I was interested in. So I set out to find myself a property manager
Okay.
and called through. I, sent, remember, just for the record, this is 2005, right? Pre iPhone, pre like there, some people had websites, not everybody,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I set out to find a property manager. I left a bunch of messages. I probably sent some info things. And the responses that I got back were just crazy to me, right? Like somebody told me, why don't you call me when you have 10 of these, right? Somebody told me, this is like a small asset for us. This doesn't really make sense. And the vast majority of people just didn't even return my call. And so something went off in my head to be like, this is interesting, right? I spent, at the time, probably close to $1 million, right, on a property.
Yeah.
And again, to me, it seemed like a lot of money.
Yeah.
I still
Yeah. It's a
think
lot
it's
of
a
money.
lot of money.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is weird. There's just a hole in the industry, right? There's a bunch of managers and a bunch of opportunities if you own a 100-unit building and you're some big corporation. But there's a million mom and pop landlords. There's a bunch of people like me that are just trying to get into this. You want to do the right thing. You realize that hiring a professional is probably the right decision. But it just seemed like there was a huge hole in the market and that it really wasn't something that people did. And so in, entrepreneur fashion, I said, all right, let's do this. I can do this. How, the famous, how hard could it be?
Yeah. Well, sometimes ignorance is bliss, and you didn't know what you didn't know, and that can be empowering in a way too. So, did you start by managing your own, or at that point were you like, all right, this is a business. We're going to treat it like a business. We're going to go out and find other assignments. Like
No, this
when you had
was,
that epiphany of
yeah.
there's a hole in the market, what happened next?
So what I had gone and went out to get my real estate agent license, right?
Hmm.
I was functioning as a realtor and mostly on the buy side and kind of helping friends. This all started, I was like the go-to person at work.
Yeah.
And then like everybody kept asking me like about real estate. I was like, oh, talk to Nathan.
Yeah.
And that there was an epiphany where I was like, hey, maybe I should get paid for this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I went out to get my license. The assumption was, maybe I'll help a few people on the side, but I'm going to buy my own stuff. Like I'd like to do my own deals.
Okay.
And so at the time, I was doing this is 2006, right? Bunch of new construction, bunch of like kind of
Condo
crazy time,
conversions and
condo
stuff were kind of
conversions.
starting.
And so a lot of what I was doing was helping people buy, but I was like really interested in investment property. So this was never the idea of like, this is a business and I really see this model. It was like, I need this done. I bet I could put together a small group of people and kind of like make this happen.
Yeah.
But over time, more and more of the people that I sold or helped buy real estate, things changed, right? They were moving or they had kids, and now all of a sudden they wanted to, not have this property, right? And so that became more and more of kind of this business coming in. I
Hmm.
had never dreamed that this was going to be a company. It was really a way to handle the real estate that I had. And I thought, what better way to, handle an investment than handle it yourself and be able to see everything.
Do you think that the fact that you started it to kind of service your own investment property and that it seems to have grown more organically from there, do you think that that was like a better foundation for the business than if you started it with the intention of growing a management company to some particular scale? To
Yeah,
me, it would seem like, not to answer it for you, it seemed like you probably really understood the blocking and tackling of the business, which is a lot of what goes into running the buildings. I mean,
yeah. I mean, so real estate and especially managing of real estate is all about sweating the small stuff,
mm,
right? This is these buildings operate on low margins, right? Everybody has this misunderstanding that landlords are making $1 billion, right? But the reality is after you're done paying expenses, tax bills, insurance bills, like all of this stuff, there's very little profit left over. And
yeah,
so I think building the business from the side of ownership
yeah,
I think it's the best way to do it. It wasn't about profit. It
yeah,
wasn't about like, how do we go out and create this business and make a bunch of money? It was, how do we service these buildings
yeah,
and how do we do it in a way that brings the most to the bottom line for that client? And my thought was, hey, like people will want to come work with us, right? We're producing great results. We're producing like great revenue. Like people are going to know and they're going to come want to work with us in the future. So it was founded on owning and operating our own properties, and the fees were about covering costs.
yeah. Well, I think, I mean, the comment that you made about investing in real estate being a low margin business, I totally agree with. It's a big fallacy in the market. I think
Hmm.
it's one of the things that can cause friction in the dynamic between housing providers, managers, and tenants too, because I think that
Yes.
there's this assumption that if the rent goes up, the owner is just a fat cat and it's just going into their pocket. Where like the reality is, like in some cases, operating expenses are going up at a far greater clip. Not in every case, but and so there's just not a ton left at the end of it. And also, just running a property management business requires a lot of bandwidth, requires a
Yes.
lot of maintenance personnel, requires a lot of staff. It requires, like you walk around here, it's a big business.
Right.
So I think that that's kind of a foundational thing in the market that our industry should be doing a better job of to kind of communicate where the dollars are going.
Right.
And I think it would go a long way in changing the dynamic between residents and housing providers.
I agree. I think it's hard. What you see when somebody sells a building or sells a business
Yeah.
is you see the dollars, right? I can go to the recorder's office and I
Yeah.
can look up what you bought it for and what you sold it for. And then everybody does the quick math and they go, wow, that was $500,000. But what they don't see is all the money that was invested over time, all of the blood, sweat, and tears that went into that. And so we're in this industry where I think people see the results without understanding what it took to get there. and make lots of assumptions around how easy it
Yeah,
is.
or they don't understand the debt structure, the structure of the partners or investors or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a tangent I took you on, but take me back to when, so you've got your 4 unit building that you're managing, you're helping friends and family out with their real estate needs. It sounds like
Yep.
maybe more so as a broker than a manager, although I assume a little bit of both. So how did the evolution of what we see Westward 360, don't fast forward all the way to where we are today, but what was kind of the next step in the business?
Yeah, what was really interesting is the mortgage crash, right? If you think back to timing, that was 2008, 2009, and
Hmm.
as that started to happen, our management business really started to gain steam. So
Hmm.
before it was just kind of, hey, I'll help you, and it's a little bit here. What happened in around 2009 is we started to gain a lot of business, and I can still hear the phone calls today. It was a very rewarding time to be in the business. Somebody would get referred to me. They'd be an owner of a condo,
Yeah.
right? They bought a condo. They bought it in, the height of the market. They want to like sell it. They talk to a realtor. They're $100,000 underwater,
Yeah.
right? And they're distraught.
Yeah.
And they call me. There's tears on the phone. They're talking through it. They've got to move. They've got this excellent job that they need to take, or they lost their job. There's lots of things going on.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting time because there was still an opportunity to rent those places. And in many cases, almost all of them, that rent could cover the mortgage and the taxes and the insurance, and they could be even or eke out a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And so these single unit condos that we were handling for folks, I mean, I was taking half a dozen calls a week of people in a really bad situation and being able to bring them in and help them put them in a situation where they can carry that forward was incredibly rewarding. I mean, people were grateful and they were excited, and that created this referral structure where they're like, "Hey, you're in this bad situation, call this person."
Yeah.
And it's weird because when you're in those bad situations, people don't always talk about it, right? And so at the time, we were getting a lot of referrals from, you know, short sale attorneys, from other attorneys, things like that, that were sending business our way to be like, hey, maybe there's another option.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk to Nate?
Yeah. And at that point, it's more than just transacting with somebody. It's they're in a bad spot, and you can provide them this opportunity that they didn't know that they had. And there was a dynamic that changed in general about just like people not seeing the American dream, for lack of a better way to put it, the same way. Like you didn't have to own a home to be happy. There
Right.
was a kind of a foundational shift in the way that people wanted to live, and that they didn't, until they were ready to settle down. A lot of people, not everybody, were happy being tenants, and maybe had a cousin or had their parents or somebody go through some hardship during that time, and so there was just also this gravitation towards like rental housing at that time
Absolutely.
for need and want. Some people were in the position where they couldn't buy again. Some people just didn't want to do it. So there was also just like a change in the dynamic in the market. And I think something that you said was important too, in that your business really grew a lot and you saw the need for it probably to a greater extent during a difficult time in the market. I think it's
Yes.
hard to get ahead when everything is good. And it's hard to stand out when everything is just going so smoothly and the wind is behind your back. It's hard to differentiate your business. And so you were coming in without the scars and without with a fresh perspective. So what was it about the way that you guys were doing things back then, and you could lead it to how you do things today, that you think made your like validated your vision or your business plan so much back then?
Foundationally, both my business partner and I like came from a career that was about customer service. It was a career that taught you taking care of the client is the best thing, and it's not about this one deal. It's
Yeah.
about building
Yeah.
clients and building those for life. And what always was interesting to me about investment management or rental management was you're managing something that is part of somebody's portfolio. It's not this quick thing. Like brokerage was interesting. I liked it. I thought it was
Yeah.
fun. The residential side of it is like very transactional, and it didn't feel like there was a lot of loyalty and what have you. Handling someone's home and or investment property, right, was a big deal. And
Yeah.
so I think just understanding that the customer service side of things, the fact that like you've got to communicate. Property management is a business where things go wrong, you know, every month, every year, like
Yeah.
something is going to happen. And so just my, I think, ability where we were good is dealing with things that go wrong and being able to provide solutions to right that ship and get them back on
Hmm.
track.
And you also you touched on it at the beginning of like, the issue that you had with some of the competition that was in the marketplace when you were shopping as a customer for a management company was like, they wanted the more scale or they wanted like the big like corporation like, but for you that 4 unit building was like your ownership in that was more meaningful than whatever the corporate board's ownership was in a 200 unit complex, so you could see what like how much you're helping these individual people that have these properties. So
Yes.
were you still working your full-time job at that point? Were you still working the
So right around that time when things started to heat up, I made the decision to leave my full-time job, my
And
corporate
that
job,
was like
right?
2009, 8.
2000, yeah, 2008, 2009. So it was a leap of faith, right?
Yeah.
But it really felt like I think this thing has momentum. I like where it's going and like I enjoy it. This is like my corporate job, I like accidentally fell into it. It paid the bills. It allowed me to invest in real estate, gain a lot of like friends that are clients now, and
Yeah.
I've got a lot of great memories, but I wasn't passionate about it. It
Yeah.
was just a paycheck.
Yeah.
In real estate from day one, I've been passionate about it. I love it. It's what I think about in the morning. It's what I think about at lunch. It's
Yeah.
what I think about before I go to bed. It's what I love.
It's a whole lifestyle, right? It really turns into like an obsession. And
Yeah. It's weird to say that. I feel corny saying that,
yeah,
but like it's
yeah,
just
as a guy that's done a few podcasts now, I'm comfortable being corny. It comes with the territory, so you just have to embrace it. But it's like, but it's true,
yeah.
and it go like if you really care about something like that. Like I also think real estate has this way of making, starting your own business really you can like personify an identity into the business because a lot of it's intangible. There's the tangibility of it, the bricks and mortar,
Yes.
but in your service or in mine, we're really like we're service providers, and so much of it is the outside. It operates in the bricks and mortars, but so much of the identity of the business will take your identity, your business partner's
Right.
identity, and that's empowering because you see how much. But it's also you can carry a lot of weight that way too. So when you were growing the business back then, it sounded like it started more on the brokerage side, and then it like you gravitated more towards the investment side, the management side.
Yes.
So once you identified that as what would really be kind of, it sounds like the core of the business, like talk to us a little bit about the growth. Take us through the 2009, coming out of the great financial crisis in the, 2012 or 13. What was the progression?
Yeah.
Because I know those were very formative years for your business.
Very formative. And like for better or for worse, we didn't know any better,
Yeah,
right? Like
right.
I remember watching real estate company after real estate company on my block where our office was shutter their doors, right? And I always laugh because like I think for a lot of these companies they had a massive advertising budget, and at the time my advertising budget was $0, and so we didn't have this scenario where you couldn't turn it off fast enough, and
Yeah.
then it just became about like cutting costs. So we were just growing consistently through that time, through referrals, through referral partners, through doing great work. So I think what I didn't really realize at the time is, coming from my previous job, I had this ability to deal with situations and provide solutions and provide great customer service. And that's becoming more and more of a lost art. It's a little crazy. And I've hired and let go a lot of people over the years. It's something that, for whatever reason, came natural to me, but does not come natural to a lot of folks. I had some, again, great training in my career, but it's becoming like a bit of a lost art, this like service and the service provider.
Well, I'll interject and say that I think your business in property management is particularly hard as a service business because
Sure.
you don't, there's very little positive reinforcement. You know,
Yes.
like really, when things are going smoothly, you don't hear anything. That's great.
Yeah.
Like, but when they really need you, it can, it's people's home. It's like a
Yes.
very, and when something's not working properly or when something's interfering with their life and their plans, it can get very heavy very quickly.
Agreed.
And I think it takes a certain person to be able to deal with that because, like, if you're a service provider at a restaurant and, you have 95% of your customers are raving about the meal, then you have that positive reinforcement too. You
Right.
don't ever get you get a lot less reviews and feedback when things are going swimmingly versus
Yes.
when there's a problem, right?
Oh, I wish more people understood how much effect their property manager has on their property's performance
Yeah.
and would understand that a little bit of that positive feedback can go a long way.
Yeah.
When my managers get a little gift, and we're talking a, $10 Starbucks gift card or
Yeah.
like even a like thank you note, like
Yeah.
that makes their day, that makes their week,
Yeah.
right? The I one of my favorite things is a tenant will email and be like, "Hey, you guys did great. Like nothing happened." Right? Like not meaning nothing broke, meaning
Yeah.
that's the expectation. And so I try to help people understand like, look, we're not here for when it just works. We're
Yeah.
here for when it doesn't work and trying to solve in that moment. And that moment is typically the only communication that resident is going to have with their manager,
Yeah.
right? When there's a fire, a flood, something breaking, something not working.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. This was, I think, the part I underestimated about scaling a business,
The
right?
people.
The people aspect. So
Yeah.
I went from, you know, thinking, oh, if I could just manage 100 doors, right? This would be great. And I think that's around the time I left my full-time job. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
we're good to go.
Yeah. This is a
This
business.
is a
We're onto
business.
something here.
And then you start bringing in other people, right? And even in the property management sphere, even if you're running a 100 door business, the amount of people involved, whether it's your handyman, your plumber, your accountant, like all of these people change. The
Yeah.
folks that are great, things happen. They move. They like,
Or you
stop,
have
get
to
out of the
promote them
business.
because your business is growing and
Yeah,
then they're a step away or a channel removed from the property level,
100%. So it's gone as we scale, it's gone very much from, I can do this, I can handle this, we're crushing this, this is
Yeah.
second nature for me, to how do we create a company and a culture around the things that we want to do and how we want to serve the client. And then how do you create this kind of next up mentality, right? If you're a property owner, you've got your A team on the maintenance person, but if you're good, you probably have your B team that might have to become your A team when something happens.
Yeah. Well, I've observed that in your business, and I think kudos. I mean, I know it's not easy, but like I still can, feel you and Brent in the business. But you've done a good job. I mean, I work with so many other people here now that you do a good job like empowering people to make decisions and not like micromanaging them,
Yes.
but still having your ear to the ground and knowing what's going on. Like if I've got to call you about something, we'll talk about it. But like there's a couple other people generally that I could call before we call you.
Right.
But it still feels like your business.
But people, I mean, to this day, people like myself, I am reachable, right? I might have a huge team to handle that, right? And I want you to have,
Yeah.
several other people before that is. But like real estate is a very personal business. Somebody is handing over their $1 million home, their $5 million building, their $30 million building, like to a particular company. And, frankly, I think they deserve to be able to get in touch with somebody and like find out answers whenever they want.
I agree. I mean, I think the gravity of what we're doing should not be understated, or what you're doing, or
Yeah.
like being a housing provider in general, I think is a heavy business, and it's a business with a lot of depth with your client, a lot of seriousness with your client, and also like, if they're handing it over to you, the responsibility that you feel. for their home or a significant asset for them, for it to function the way that they expect it to, like that's a heavy job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be like downplayed. As even if you guys could take a building over and like, make it feel like it's on autopilot, it's still a big undertaking, right?
Yeah. Getting to that autopilot is challenging.
Yeah.
And I think what's,
And what goes on behind the scenes for it to
yeah.
feel that way to the customer, right?
Yeah, it's the one of the challenges we face, and it's why I've invested a lot in our new asset management program, is we as the manager are simply an agent. We're a fiduciary of the client, meaning I can only, per my contract, spend this much of your money, right? Like if you
Hmm.
need to do something, you need a new roof, you need like a new HVAC, I need your permission in order to do that. And we catch owners in all sorts of like times where they're like, no problem,
Yeah.
and times where they're like, ooh, I don't know if I could do that right now. But we're the ones on the front lines, dealing with the repercussions. So we try to have options, right? Hey, we can band-aid this for a
Yeah.
little bit, but like you really need to provide this level of service, and you
Yeah.
need to like provide, clean, safe, working items for residents. And so we're kind of in this weird position sometimes where we need a partner that understands this is a great investment, but you have to reinvest in that investment to have it continue to work.
Yeah, I understand that.
And so our asset management team was designed specifically for that, to help folks understand how their investment has grown over time, right? What we are doing for that, and how, when it's time, how to plan for CapEx, how to
Yeah.
know to set certain things aside, how to look at when to rehab things, when not, all of these things that can lead to better performance. We will make the suggestions, but it takes the owner signing off on that.
So that's like working on your business versus in your business. A lot of the property management's probably considered like the day to day, and
Yes.
then the asset management is more like moving the chess pieces or something like. Is that how you see it,
It,
or is that not a
it's a
fair?
little yes, kind of. So I think what happens if you're a housing provider, you're a building owner, you collect rent, you have expenses, whatever is left is yours, right? And so most housing providers concentrate on the expenses. They're like, lower my expenses, right?
Yeah.
And I see these emails to managers. They're like, lower the expense,
Yeah.
right? And
Okay.
that, well, yeah, right, right. I mean, look,
Well, since you said so.
yeah, right. We weren't thinking before.
Yeah, I'm just
Yeah. I
sorry.
mean, look, we do have, great relationships with our vendors. We do, from our scale, have special pricing with a lot of folks. We can, and we do that when you onboard, right? When you onboard, we're going to bring you on. We're going to put you on all of our special stuff. We're likely going to save you some money over time, but that's not going to move the needle
Yeah,
significantly,
if you
right?
look at the bucket of expenses, the percentage of them that you'd consider fixed
Yeah.
is much higher than what you'd consider variable.
Right. And it doesn't always increase at the same speed or percentage as your income,
Yeah.
right? So they're not tied. I mean,
Yeah.
this is my thing with taxes and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't, those are going to rise at a different rate than we may be able to adjust rents accordingly,
Yeah.
right? And not that those are tied, but like just as an owner, you're paying those.
Take us back because it sounds like the asset management side of the business is a focus too, and it sounds like that's something you're really trying to differentiate.
Yes.
So I got you talking, I think, about expenses a little bit, but like I understand that there's another component to it too.
The
So
biggest thing you can do to increase the value of your investment, your property, is to get the income to its highest potential that you can, right? Now, there's some basic stuff, right? You got to get the rents to market. That's pretty basic.
yeah,
But the thing that I think people overlook is, are there small upgrades or rehabs that you can do to your space that ultimately are going to pay themselves back immediately, right? So we might be able to do a rehab to a unit, update a kitchen, update a bathroom. That rent could go up 20%.
yeah,
I could be paying back the cost of that rehab in 5 years. That's a 20% return. Good luck getting that somewhere else.
yeah,
Not to mention the value of your building increased. And so the asset management is around helping people do that math and see it in a way that your just day to day property manager didn't always have the time or the ability to do for owners. So we want to help get information to people to make decisions that benefit their investment.
I think that's smart too, because when I think about that, I think about you have a lot of different types of clients too, with different goals and stuff. And
Yes.
when you think about asset management, like property management, there's probably a lot more like parity across what the services are from one person to another. But when you think about asset management, you really have to like you were talking about, at the inception of your business, like partnering with your clients and
Absolutely.
understanding what they're trying to achieve, what their time horizon is, when the debt comes due, what the
Yes.
capital structure is, what their budget is. Like all those things are very, very meaningful for the asset that aren't really what most people consider in property management scope of services, because property management is more
Yes.
of associated with the day to day.
Yeah, but the challenge with that is the success that that property manager has is very dependent on what
Yeah.
sort of investment that person is putting
Yeah.
in.
I think that's probably a really hard thing about the business is when you have
Yeah,
people with different like willingness to invest in the property, like they see your sign on the building,
right.
but like they don't understand that a lot of times you're handcuffed into whatever the either the condo association or the investor wants to spend, and that can change the feel of the building a lot
Yeah.
more.
I think most novice investors they concentrate on just cash flow,
Yeah.
right? My rent, I took in this much rent this year, I had this much expenses. What's my cash
Yeah.
flow? And there was an expectation that you would buy the building, you'd take that downstroke, you'd pay that, and then the cash flow just comes in. And
Yeah.
like anything that's needed would then be paid from the cash flow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always work that way. There are times where you need to, there's an opportunity to invest more in order to increase the cash flow, increase the value over time. And it's like a much better investment and a much better paying investment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just having that asset management and being able to push that, I think, is what I want to continue to look for opportunities like that to help our clients do the right thing that helps us, that helps them,
And
that,
you've done it so many times
yeah,
too. Like you're
it's,
not,
yeah,
you're not preaching something that you haven't practiced, right? I mean,
yeah,
I could tell that you're passionate about that side of the business because like you guys have been doing it, on your own accord and for others for a long enough time to really know what you're talking about at this point, right?
yeah. And I mean, I love talking to people who own investment real estate, right? And what I've found is most people that own investment real estate are they're CEOs, they're doctors, they're attorneys, they're somebody that got this property through probate,
Yeah,
right? And it was like passed down from a family member.
right.
My point is like whatever they do professionally in their life, I'm sure they're excellent at.
Yeah,
But when it comes to knowledge about the property and what to do, they're in the dark. And so it takes a lot more education and a lot more sharing to help those folks like make the right decisions. And so
yeah,
we're doing a lot more also of helping connect people with mortgage brokers, with commercial realtors, like helping them get to the spots that they need um, to, for
yeah.
success.
Well, I'm gonna hit fast forward a little because we kind of talked a little bit about the genesis of the business and some of the core values and some of your initiatives, but I don't think that we've really kind of covered the scale of the business today because this is not, the business that you aspired to create of 100 units and how you thought that
Right.
that would, it's grown to, you far surpassed that and you have a big team. It's a lot to be proud of. So like, talk to us a little bit about like, what is Westward 360 today?
Yeah, it was fun to go down memory lane. It always is. It's nice to remember the times, and it's funny when I was that small, 5-person company, and it was us against the world. I thought, like service can't be any better than we're providing right now,
Yeah,
and you believe that. And if I look at where we are today and the service that we provide and the knowledge base and the specialty areas that we cover, we're 20x
yeah,
better for what we're delivering on the client. I mean, we're just in the Chicagoland alone, we have 5 different offices. We manage thousands of different doors throughout the Chicagoland office. We have teams of property managers, of asset managers. We have a leasing team for our properties. We have a maintenance team for our properties. So it's gone from this tiny 5-person business
It's
to
crazy, man.
a business that I think, scales across all of Chicagoland. And,
Sorry.
the plan is to keep going, but to scale in a way that makes sense. That's always what I've wanted to do. It's not about just growing to grow. It's really about providing the same great solutions for our clients and continuing to help them into the future.
I would venture to guess also that the reason why we spent some time like reminiscing a little bit is because you think back in the time like I do when I started very fondly of like when you're getting started. So anybody that's like in the trenches, getting started in their real estate investing, they could aspire to build a big business out of it, but enjoy the beginning because it is fun and you look back on it really proudly someday like you and I have a chance to today. What advice would you give somebody that's getting started in real estate investing? Not necessarily in trying to grow big property management, but just you know it's um it's not an easy thing to start. It can require a lot of capital, a lot of
Yeah,
know-how, and so like if somebody were to, a friend of yours were to call you and say, "Hey, I'm interested in getting into real estate investing," what are some of the things that you'd give them to pay attention to out of the gate?
great question. I mean, real estate investing, like investing in a 401k or anything like that, it's at its core about starting, right? Real estate
Yeah,
gains value over time. There's going to be ups and downs, right? But much like the market, like the stock market, over time, the numbers are in your favor. So it's about, when should you buy yesterday? At the same time,
timing the market versus time in the market, Ray Dalio quote or something
no,
there. I think,
no,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no.
Start,
Getting started,
yeah,
but I would spend some time talking to people, try to put together your team,
yeah,
right? When I see people, so what happens in property management is people bring me a building, and generally they don't bring it when it's amazing.
yeah, yeah,
They come after like something has happened. So usually I'll see somebody who just bought something poorly. They're, you know, um, handing over something that they had different expectations. And when I go back through the story and I'm like, okay, well, how did this happen? Right?
yeah,
Okay, well, you never saw the property, right? You live out of state. You saw it on a thing. You like looked at the numbers. You said, seems good.
yeah.
And you bought it, right? Then you didn't hire a property manager and you were trying to manage it from afar, right? Like it's very obvious to me where things go sideways. It's about talking to people, interviewing people, finding your team, find your commercial broker, find your property manager,
Yeah.
find your attorney, right? And if you only have one of those, like find one of those, and I promise we all have folks that we deal with that we will refer out all the
And we
time
like to.
because we know that the better, if I can get you good people, I'm going to get a much better asset that's going to be performing better, or at least you're coming in with expectations than I am if that's not there.
And it can be a lot easier to plan for avoiding pitfalls versus trying to kind of clean up the mess after they already
100%.
happened,
Yeah.
right? I think your advice about building a network, even in some cases before you need all of it, is
Yes.
because that's very formative. Because every conversation you have with a broker, with a manager, with a lender, with an attorney, with a leasing, all these people, that'll inform what you want to buy too. So like, don't buy what you think you want to buy without understanding how you're going to operate it after the fact. It can seem
Yeah.
obvious, but I agree. A lot of people just start without and then say they'll figure it out, which I appreciate the entrepreneurial like kind of initiative in. But you really all these buildings are their own little business. You have to know how you're going to run it afterwards too.
Yeah. There's plenty of people out there willing to help. I also, when you build that team, there is nothing wrong with asking someone how they're paid, right? And
Hmm.
how they're compensated. Like understand the motivations of that team that you're building,
Yeah,
right? You got a property manager who does not care what building you buy, right? We just care that we're going to manage it and that you have eyes open coming into it, right? That the expectations are there. And just looking at that and making sure you understand that. Like sometimes, maybe there's somebody who doesn't have great motivations because they're, you know, being paid on like one particular deal or something like that, right? And not to say that's always the fact, but like just look at, you know, who am I partnering with and are they truly, does it not matter what sort of deal I get or when I buy? And those are your great folks in the beginning to get going with.
yeah, I understand. And understanding how they're incentivized is really smart because incentives are a very powerful thing in any business, in
Right.
our business and others. But there's sometimes people dance around that conversation thinking that it's like taboo. It should be the opposite.
Yeah,
Making sure that incentives are aligned with what their goals are is it's like a very constructive thing to do on the front end versus like
absolutely.
have anybody have, not the whole picture in mind. So what are some of the things that if you were an investor today or property manager today that you think that people should have on their radar? Like what do you think are some of you could describe it as either opportunities or pitfalls? Like what do you see in today's marketplace as either or both?
Yeah, it's tough with pitfalls. I mean, I've seen it all, right? You same as you. We've seen it all over
Yeah,
the
but you've
years.
seen it all, and so
Yeah.
like some other people haven't.
Yeah,
What do you see a lot
I
that
think a
catches
lot of
people off guard, maybe?
I think a lot of people are concerned about pitfalls and making the wrong mistake, or they'll go talk to an owner and the or like a current investor, and the investor is gonna like get really in the weeds around, here's what you want to do, and you want to go buy like this and what have you. If you're getting started and if it's your first property, like your best bet is to find a team and then jump in, right? And ask a lot of questions
Yeah.
to that team. If you've got the right team, the team's going to look at opportunities, right? What I look at is not what the property is doing now, but
Hmm.
what the property could be doing in the future,
Yeah.
right? So if it's a property I'm going to buy, it's probably one that like doesn't look so nice,
Yeah.
right? But you need again a partner. You need a very good construction partner. You could be me in 2006 buying that,
Yeah.
four flat that you think you can do XYZ with, and like turns out it's not going to get approved by the city, right? And so, um, yeah, you want to have the right people in place. You want to look at what it can do, and you want to be as uh, as up to date on the costs and the expenses to get there.
Yeah. I think it's smart advice because so many people will look at a property and say, "What's the cap rate?" And they'll
Right.
say, and the cap rate, if you're not familiar, is the NOI. It'd be like your unleveraged return on your investment. So the NOI divided by the purchase price.
Right.
And a lot of people will apply a trailing NOI to the price and determine a cap rate that way without really applying their own like kind of underwriting template to it. And you're not buying somebody's historical revenue stream. You're
Yeah.
buying the going forward.
Right.
So I'm not saying it's moot because you can look at a T12 or you can look at the trailing operations and pull things from it that are meaningful to apply on a go forward. But if in some cases it is moot, because
Yeah.
you'd rather buy a three cap if you could turn it into a nine cap, for instance.
Exactly.
And there aren't a lot of nine caps out there, so don't call me for one. But the point is that like you need to understand how it's going to fit within your operation, going forward, more so than what it's how it's performed historically, right? All right, so what's on the horizon for Westward? We've talked a little bit about how you
Yeah.
got here and what you are today, but what's the next chapter look like for Westward 360?
Yeah, look, we're going through a really interesting time, right? Obviously, AI is something that is going to change a lot, all industries across the board, and I see us continuing to grow, continuing to focus on the same customer service and providing for the client. I've always been interested in technology and how that can help provide better service.
Yeah,
I do think, there's lots of things in this industry that can be enhanced, but absolutely not replaced,
yeah,
right? We are in and out of people's homes. We still have to fix the faucet, right?
yeah,
I don't think that's a chatbot that fixes your faucet,
yeah,
right? Can we get you faster answers perhaps and like a more immediate response? Absolutely. That leads to happier clients, et cetera. The property management industry has always been behind, I think, where the world is. And so even from the beginning, like helping to close that gap has been a focus of mine.
yeah,
So, I can look at where my pizza delivery guy is from Domino's, right? But I can't see where the technician is that's like coming to my house, right?
yeah,
And I've taken work off and I'd like to know that.
yeah,
And so I think there's going to be lots of advancements in technology that can better define traffic, better define, job types and things like that. And I just think the client expectations are going to keep increasing. We're going to continue to see companies that need to invest and embrace technology. And that's going to be the future of, how we continue to service the client and continue to get better and better. I mean, one of the things is we have truly gotten better and better each year, which is just wild to think
Yeah.
about. And it's again a combination of people in tech. And so I see the future continuing to grow that way. We've seen both owners and tenants' expectations rise dramatically. When I first started in this business,
Yeah, true.
owner statements were mailed. An owner would get a piece of paper and look at a
Yeah.
statement, right? Tenants would mail a rent check or drop it off in
Yeah.
like a box. That's
Yeah.
what happened,
Go physically sign a lease, yeah.
right? And so the right now it's all about instant, right? And how do we continue to meet those expectations and continue to help bridge the gap between ultimately what is a tenant and what is an owner.
Yeah.
At our core, that's what we do as the property manager, right? We ultimately work for the owner, but we're trying to make sure we are providing services to both parties that work.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's funny when you answered the question, I wasn't thinking, I didn't know where you'd go with it exactly, but, I think you guys take for granted a little bit your understanding and willingness to embrace new technologies because I agree, property management and real estate in general, I think is kind of behind the times from a technology standpoint. And today, AI and technology kind of end up being synonymous, or we can't talk about one without talking about the other, right? But for you guys, it's kind of second nature because that's, you started in a technology business,
Right.
and it's a good thing to embrace without it replacing, right? So it's like, it's
Yeah.
still very much a people business. It's still very much like who your property manager is, who the maintenance tech is, who owns the company. But the technology that we could apply to our business to like improve the tenant experience or improve like your internal kind of like workflow. There's a
Yeah.
lot of opportunity there.
It's what we're most excited
Yeah.
about. We think what we're going to be able to do is a lot of the administrative, like kind of minutia where you've got to search through a lease or find this, that
Yeah.
this can be more instantaneous. It allows for more human connection and human conversation and actual relationship building, right? With clients, with owners, with tenants, right? Like imagine calling somebody and having like a pleasant conversation because you've got all the details or
Yeah.
you've got all the details that you're both looking at that you can talk through and work towards a solution. It's going to be amazing.
Once you figure it all out, don't forget about your buddy. Fill me in because I would be embarrassed to show you my Chat GPT history right now and how trivial of the things that I use it for are. But anyway, I'm excited to see what's next for you guys.
Yeah. What I know you refer out a lot of partners, right? And like you
Yeah.
work with a lot of dealing on commercial real estate. You bring a lot of people that are in, and you've always been great about matching somebody with the right vendor partner, whether
Yeah.
that's an attorney, a mortgage folks. I mean, you've introduced me to quite a few
Yeah.
people. When you think about property management, like how do you determine or decide like where to refer somebody or how to send somebody to a property management company?
A lot of it starts at the top, not because I'm talking to you, but the people that I know that are running the business, and what I had talked about a little bit earlier, and one of the questions that I asked you about, like, these businesses end up kind of personifying who runs them, and if something really goes wrong, knowing who they're talking to at that point. So having trust in who's steering the ship is a big part of it, and then I think it's about like you when you were asking the question, you asked about fit, and I can't
Right.
always determine fit. Fit. I can guess on who would be the best fit, but it's really about connecting with them individually. So before I won't really try to like fully understand what they're looking for. Before I'll let I'll let the property manager and the prospective client connect directly and just make an introduction that way. And personally, I don't take referral fees. I never like tax an introduction. I do it because I think somebody would do a good job and because I think their business is growing and it's credible, and that they understand the basics, but they're also trying to improve things along the way.
Right.
And so I think it's less about me, just jamming two people together. It's more about just like making introductions and letting it mesh if it's going to mesh, because I can't
Yeah.
always predict how that's going to happen. But now, when you guys started, the scale that you were at was it was really fitting for some people, but like didn't have the same capabilities that you had today. So, whether it was like a geographic constraint or whether it was just like, if something was too big or just like, I don't know, outside of your wheelhouse in any way, now you guys are like, you're just covering a lot of ground and you have a ton of bandwidth. And I
Yeah.
think that it's been cool to see you guys grow the business. It's like, knowing you for 15 years and knowing where you started, I think we had originally connected on like a loop net. Like seriously, like
Probably.
you had reached out on a property. Like I think I'm almost positive it was a 7-unit building in Logan Square that you guys were interested in. And, now the growth of this business is just wild. So proud for you guys. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, you're doing pretty well yourself, my
No,
friend. So I think one of the
time
things
in
that
the market.
that's right. One of the things I think where we've always, I think why we get along and why we see eye to eye, it's this idea of business should be about relationships and should be about the longevity of that business
Yeah.
relationship. It's about doing the right thing, like consistently, not caring a ton about like immediate outcomes and things like that. And that focus, that's who I try to surround myself with, people that have that same mentality.
Yeah, likewise.
I just think it's the right thing to do, and I think it's what wins overall in the long term.
It's the right thing to do, and now you've seen it over the course of and I've seen it over the course of my career that
Yeah.
you've seen it's actually better too. So even if you're doing it for
100%,
it's
right.
like the better way to do it. I
Yeah,
look back, and 75% of the people that I've done a deal with have done multiple deals with. So
right.
it's like it turns into a pretty small world, and treating people well and like putting their interests before yours is the only way that I know.
Yeah, it's good to sit down with you. I really appreciate you coming in.
Good to be here.
Looking forward
Yeah,
to.
an official podcast.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
love it, man.
All
Well,
right.
keep it up.
Take care.